So, I mean, the Last Real Man gimmick is kind of a little bit of an extension of myself. My dad, growing up, I had 5 older brothers, and they were, kind of dipshits and stuff like that. And so my dad, was kind of a hard ass. And, by the time I came around, he was, he wasn't taking any crap. And, my dad had, like, the slick back hair, and he had a mustache. So it's kind of a nod to him. And then, like, the reason, like, I came up with that look was because of him, and then kind of even the Last Real Man thing, but it was just like, it was around the time when, they started talking, you started hearing like the term metrosexual for guys that, do their hair and like, I guess do a little bit more, primping or whatever. I don't know what the word is, I guess, doing their nails or whatever and stuff like that. Or guys wearing skinny jeans. It was like, society was starting to see a little bit of this change in how men were. So it was kind of like this idea that, like a throwback to like our fathers or our grandfathers, stuff that they would see that guys do nowadays and be like, that ain't no shit no man would do. So it was kind of like a simple gimmick, and it's one of those things that, like, I mean, I knew that my wrestling was good. Like, I had been wrestling for a long time, but I knew I needed something different because I was just Silas Young. I was just this guy with a long hair and a beard. So I thought, why not shaving the mustache, start calling myself the Last Real Man, and then basically just every person that I work against, I can tell you why I'm a man and why they're not a man. And as silly as it sounds, like, it's a very simple concept, but it works really well.
I totally agree, and I can't say you're wrong on any of that assertions, because that definitely feels like you may be at times the Last Real Man, because I feel like a lot of these guys with, like you're saying, that metrosexualness or whatever it is, kind of going maybe in the wrong direction for us, old school man, or us throwback men.
Right, exactly. I mean, obviously, I don't give a damn what anybody does in their life, but it's one of those obvious, obvious things in life that can be pointed out, and it's very offensive to people,
Definitely, especially with a lot of today's modern fans. We'll just say maybe hipster-ish, we could say, a lot of the modern fans, so they definitely get offended.
Yeah, it's definitely a very hipster-based crowd.
I always think that gimmick is old school in a sense, but I kind of like the way, you're presenting it today with the, new school flavor. Obviously, the work rate is a bit, advanced, so to speak, and not so to speak as far as, an old school wrestler. You definitely have a great worker for today's day and age. What kind of, new school, old school kind of mix do you see yourself kind of asserting into your offense?
I just try to, like, I guess honestly my theory is, you should just be a bad guy, like, for the majority of the match. And, if, everybody knows everything cool happens at the end of the show, right? Or at the end of the match. So, I only do cool stuff at the end of the match, where a lot of guys do cool stuff the whole match. That's like the simplest way to put it, I guess. I try to be a heel until it comes to the, till the end of the match, to be quite honest with you. We all know how wrestling works nowadays.
Yeah,
I think of
absolutely.
I think of like I want to be a dick and make these people hate me as much as possible, but still at the end they'll respect me.
I love that psychology, because you kind of got that old school heel vibe to you, with a new school flavor, obviously, but it's definitely more old school than a lot of the things you see today, where the guys are almost doing just high spots, or kind of not having as much psychology as we probably think they should have.
Right. Well, and that's fine. There's all types of different wrestling. It'd be boring if every match on the show was the same. So it's good to have these different types of wrestling. But I think I definitely take a little bit more of a slower pace in the ring. At certain points.
And that is kind of not wrestling necessarily that's great, but just the wrestling that I personally always enjoyed was kind of like the old school heels. Like Arn Anderson or whatever, you slow down, methodical, but you pick up the pace when you need to, and you really work the crowd and different things like that. I just feel like you are like kind of a breath of fresh air, so to speak, in not only Ring of Honor, but in just wrestling in general, because you're definitely, like we said, kind of a throwback, kind of like that old school wrestler with that new school vibe.
Yeah, and that was kind of my idea, was that there's, so many guys going one way, I wanted to go the other way with it, And I think that, I think that does help me stand out just if for nothing else, for being different,
Do you have any influences as far as maybe some old school wrestlers you definitely kind of take from, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, like very, obvious guys like Arn Anderson. I was a big fan of even Macho Man when he was a heel. Any guys that just were, came up with very creative stuff. I like to watch a lot of the old like NWA shows, like from the early '80s. There's a lot of good heels. There's a lot of really good heels, back in the '80s and '90s. So, basically any guy, I was a big fan of the Big Boss Man. I always thought he was excellent. So guys like that.
Now, as far as yourself in ROH, I know obviously, you made your debut all the way back in 2007, left for a while, came back, but basically, you've been in ROH for a very long time, really kind of returning in 2012 and basically been there ever since with some blips in the radar. But I really think that the feud that you had with Kevin Steen when he kind of was on his way out, I feel like that kind of propelled you into, that main event scene, so to speak, or kind of that kind of elevated you up the card. Do you think that was kind of like the point where you really stood out, so to speak, in Ring of Honor?
I mean, I think that was a good point, but I think, honestly, the stuff that really made me stand out. Me and Kevin definitely had some good matches, and I got the opportunity to, got the opportunity to get the victory on him, on his way out. And, that's always a good thing for a guy like, Kevin, or for a guy like me coming from a guy like Kevin. But the one that I think really helped me propel or stand out was, the thing that I did with Dalton Castle.
Yes. And it was almost that kind of, like we were saying before, that old school, new school. He's got a little bit of that hipster vibe to him. He's doing something different. He's doing some creative. He's being like, that unique character, and you're kind of just being that like almost like grumpy old wrestler, where it's like, oh my god, like what is this guy? What's he doing? It's the ultimate kind of real man versus this new age man, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It was, it was like we're the polar opposites of each other. The story was right there, and I thought it was, it was done in a really good way. It was something that, we only had a handful of singles matches, and I think went like close to a year, maybe more, maybe a little under, but, it was a real kind of long drawn out, story. And I thought it was really well. And when it finally ended, it was, something that the fans were really into and really enjoyed.
And I liked kind of playing off the boys and stuff too. You were playing off them perfectly, so to speak, as far as being able to, I play that kind of, surly guy that you're like questioning what they're up to, kind of questioning what Dalton Castle's up to. But very classy way. It was very funny. Very funny stuff.
There was one promo that I think that kind of pushed the line a little bit, where I said, I don't like the lifestyle that you and them boys have been living together.
Yes.
If that promo would have happened like maybe a few years later, I would have been in trouble, So that was, I went and pushed the line a little bit, and it was, it was just one of those good things, man. It was, it was all, I thought it had a nice pace to it, a nice build, and it was, something that everybody really enjoyed.
And you're right. You guys did play off each other perfectly, and perhaps now, if you said that, you would probably maybe be in trouble for whatever reason. Does that make it harder for you? Like, because you got to think at some of your promos, like, oh, I can't say this or I can't say that. I may get in trouble. Isn't that kind of crazy that these fans might get offended from wrestling promos and wrestling storylines?
I know it kind of is, right? Like, you don't like my perfect example all the time is like people get really mad about like stuff that happens in wrestling, and it's like it's supposed to be offensive. Like no one gets mad at Leonardo DiCaprio when he dropped the N-bomb like 8,000 times in the movie Django Unchained, because they realize that it's a movie and it's a form of entertainment, and it's not really who Leonardo DiCaprio is. That was a great movie, and no one thinks any different of the actors in there who were dropping the N-bomb a million times in that movie.
Absolutely. It's a great analogy. It's so true, because you're supposed to, have emotion. You're supposed to get offended. Like when, let's say, Slaughter Hogan, when Slaughter burned the flag and Slaughter did this, like that's because you wanted to hate him. By the time Hogan got him at WrestleMania, you wanted to kill him. If that happened today, WWE would be in trouble, Vince would be in trouble, Slaughter would be in trouble. It's just crazy, right?
Right, but there is certain things like, I mean, I think the flag thing is fine, but there's certain things that I think should still be off limits. Like I think the race thing, like you probably shouldn't touch on that really. Also, like I don't like it, like sometimes like mentally challenged people come and like you'll have guys that like, hey, you effing retards or whatever. It's like, come on, dude, that's just unnecessary. So there's some things that I think are should still be a little off limits, but for the most part, you should be able to be a little offensive. You should be able to push the line a little bit, and not have to worry about getting in trouble because you're genuinely making people mad like you're supposed to be.
Totally agree. That's kind of the role of playing a heel, really getting the emotions, really kind of playing on that. And I feel like maybe current wrestling fans maybe aren't quite getting that, as much as maybe they should be. But, that's kind of neither here nor there. But I do feel like nowadays these fans almost take it too far where, they'll kind of call the sponsors of the show and they'll try to get the show in trouble. Sometimes I feel like they almost ruin the show a little bit instead of just being fans and enjoying it.
Right. Well, I think a big part of it too is in that, I just kind of realized this a while ago is, wrestlers have become a lot more humanized than when they were when we were kids. Like, I remember when I was a kid, like, I never considered the fact that the big boss man grew up and wanted to be a wrestler. I just thought he was just born to be a wrestler. I just thought he was really a cop who was like dirty and ended up becoming a wrestler. Like, I thought guys like, you know what I mean? Like, that shit never crossed my mind. You know what I mean? You just assumed, I don't know, I guess when you're a kid, you just kind of like assume, like, I don't know, like, the $1 Million Man's probably just always been rich. You know what I mean? Like, that's why he's an asshole like this or whatever. I know it sounds silly, but like, the wrestlers have become more humanized, so they're not like characters anymore. Like, you don't see like actors don't really like go online and thank each other for like the playing different parts in the movie with them or like talking with fans and stuff a lot like that. Like, and I know I'm not trying to sound like a dick or anything, but you know what I mean? Like a lot of like stars, I guess, so to speak, they treat themselves like stars. And I know it sounds weird, but like, especially in like nowadays where people are like so like hung up on celebrities and stuff like that, like celebrities are so inaccessible. You know what I mean? Like, they got like people like blocking them, like people blocking paparazzi from taking pictures of them and stuff like that. They're different, and I guess just maybe society's a little different too, but I just think wrestlers have become more humanized, and it's a little bit harder for fans to disconnect character from real person.
That is a great point, because it is much more easier to interact with these guys, either Twitter or let's say autograph signs or whatever, and you kind of learn more about them, and they're definitely more humanized as far as the fact that they feel like they know them, and anytime they do anything, maybe it is, like you said, maybe it is more offensive, and maybe the wrestlers are being too open. Do you think that maybe, as far, obviously kayfabe's been dead for a long time, but you think that maybe we should have the door closed from us a bit from the wrestlers? Maybe kayfabe should be brought back a little bit?
No, because it's not going to be. Everybody knows it. Like, people used to be crazy, man. They used to like stab wrestlers and stuff like that because they thought that shit was real. But nowadays, people are smarter. They know what the show is, and I just think it's how society is. You have things like Twitter, and even if you wanted to do something like that, I don't think it'd be possible anyways. And I just think that people, are just different because there's so much more access and stuff like that, that it'd be almost impossible to even do that if you wanted to.